I'm all set to call the meeting to order. Let's see here. All right, call the. We're going to do a roll call to call the meeting.
Ted, you hit mute.
My darn mouse was on it, and I accidentally clicked it. Okay, roll call. Mike Holden.
Here.
Michelle Hebner.
Here.
Tony Corpia. Tony hop on yet? Okay, I don't see Tony yet. Jennifer Windows.
Here.
Ted Saxton here. Terry Murray.
Here.
Roxanne Skokstad Deach.
Here.
And Kevin Grover.
Present.
And Ella Barr Jeffrey, student rep. Is she on? Oh, I don't see her. Okay. We're gonna please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you want to mute your mic or unmute it, go ahead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we're going to sing the national anthem. We sing in Rotary and it's never, I think we sing Happy Birthday.
Oh, say, can
Please.
Please don't. No.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion? Second by Terry.
Second.
Okay. And then we got to do a roll call vote for this, but before we do, there's some discussion that we have. Kevin, you want to hop in?
No, the only thing I would ask is action item number 3, which is I'm going to say the resolution of the sale of bond. If we can move that up to the next thing here, and that way we get it taken care of, and Joel is with us, does not have to sit through the whole meeting. So it's really no change to the agenda, just moving one thing up.
Okay. With that change, Rox, you good with that change on your motion?
Yeah, I'm good. Are we going to have the documents on the screen too when we look at them?
Yep, I'll share my screen.
Okay.
All right. Yep.
Okay, well, we're hearing no further discussion. I'll do a roll call to approve the agenda as presented. Mike Holden?
Yes.
Michelle Hebner?
Yes.
Jennifer Windows?
Yes.
Ted Saxton, yes. Terry Murray?
Yes.
Roxanne Skokstad Deach?
Yes.
And that...
Tony's on now, Ted.
Oh, okay. Tony, we're doing a motion to approve the agenda. How do you vote?
Yeah, sorry, I was having computer issues.
Okay. Okay, so we're good. Then it passes unanimously. Is there, before we go on to that, what we just talked about, is there anybody else here that would like to speak at public forum? I know it's a little different because of the Zoom and stuff. So if anybody ever wants to get on public forum, just go ahead and message Kevin or any of the board members and we'll get you on there. So if nobody is, then we'll move on to if you have something, I guess maybe we can talk about having public forum at the end too, kind of similar to the cities does while we do, this type of meeting. The other thing is I'm going to try to look as much as I can to see if people have their hands raised so I stop talking. And if I miss you, feel free to be as rude as you want and just stop me because Zoom meetings are awkward. So I would appreciate if you want me to stop, just to stop me. Okay, moving on. So we're going to jump to action item number 3 really quick and then we'll go back. Action item number 3, approve the resolution awarding the sale, determining the forms and details, authorizing the execution, delivery, and registration, and providing for the payment of general obligation alternative facilities, refunding and facility maintenance bonds, series 2028 in the amount of $3,075,000. I'll entertain a motion and then we can get the presentation maybe once we have the motion in a second.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Michelle and Mike, okay, got you guys. We're ready for you then.
Okay, Ted, if I can, Joel is with, from Ellers, and I would thank Joel and Shelby that have just immensely helped us along the way. So Joel, I have the document, as you can see, up. If you want to talk and lead us through, we'll follow along.
Great. Thank you very much, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be with you. I really appreciate you moving me up on the agenda, although I don't have to drive home from International Falls tonight. So it's not like it used to be. And just as a little bit of background here, I have worked at Ellers since 1996. And I knew I started working with International Falls fairly early there, and I just was looking through our files and I found a letter that I wrote in the summer of 1997 to Superintendent John Fredericks. And so I worked with the district, we worked with the district on I think 3 separate bond referendums that were attempted in that 1998 to 2000 range, and unfortunately none of them were successful. But we have worked with you off and on different projects since then. So we're very happy to be involved in this project. So I'm going to go through this sale day report, and I guess Kevin, you can scroll down to the next page. So we're going to talk first about the purpose of the bonds, and this is review for you, I know, because you went through the pre-sale report about a month ago, but there are really 3 purposes for this bond issue. One is to finance a current refunding, or essentially a refinancing of your 2010 bonds. Those bonds were issued to finance indoor air quality improvements at Falls High School. So the intent is to reduce payments and property taxes by refunding that. And then the rest of it is for facilities maintenance projects, but it's really divided, that portion of it is really divided into 2 sections. There are different statutes that apply to maintenance projects that are related to health and safety, and indoor air quality is considered part of health and safety. So for those projects, you get additional revenue to finance the payments on the bond. So any portion of the project that you're now doing at the elementary school that's considered indoor air quality qualifies for that portion of the facilities maintenance funding. And then the other portion for the boiler and some other parts of it that are not technically indoor air quality, they're more deferred maintenance. There's a separate schedule for those, and those payments get made out of your existing long-term facilities maintenance revenue. So those are the purposes. We did get a rating on the bonds, and there are 2 kinds of credit ratings that Minnesota schools can get. The first is the credit enhancement rating. That's available because the state has a program called the Minnesota Credit Enhancement Program, in which they will stand behind the payments on any school district bond issue. And so if you were to miss a payment, the state would step in and make the payment for you. Because of that, you qualify, any school district's bonds qualify for the same rating as the state has. And right now that is AAA, which is the best rating that you can get. The other type of rating is an underlying rating, which is the credit rating that the district would receive on their own for this issue. You have never had an underlying rating before. The 2010 bonds that we did for you, and then the building bonds a year or 2 ago, we only got the credit enhanced rating, but we're hearing from investors and underwriters more and more that they really want to know what that underlying rating is. So we went through the process about 2 weeks ago, had a conference call with Kevin and Stacy and my colleague Shelby McQuay and myself, and a gentleman from Standard & Poor's, or S&P is their official name, S&P Global, and they gave you an underlying rating of A, which is a good rating for a district your size. And I think as I go through some of the other materials later in the report, I'll just go through some of the highlights of that rating report. So we took bids this morning at 10 a.m. for the sale of your bonds, and we received 6 bids. The low bid was Northland Securities out of Minneapolis. And if you scroll down to the next page, Kevin, next page, you can see some of the other firms that bid. Northland actually bid with United Bankers Bank out of Bloomington, and United Bankers Bank provides services to other independent banks, so it may be that one of the banks in your community was involved with them. The next bid was from Baird out of Milwaukee with almost an identical interest rate. It differed by well under 1/100%. And then we had bids from BNY, Mellon Capital Management in Pittsburgh, FHN Financial out of Memphis, Piper Sandler out of, it says Chicago. I guess they bid out of the Chicago office. They're based in Minneapolis. And then Stifel Nicholas out of Memphis. It's really unusual to see 6 bids on an issue of this size. And I think it's an indication of the fact that right now, this week, demand for bonds is very strong. It's been getting stronger and stronger over the last couple of weeks. So if you go back up to that previous page, Kevin, some of the highlights here, we note right there, the actual true interest rate of 1.18% is substantially lower, that's an understatement, than the estimate of 2.57% used in the pre-sale report that was presented to you on April 20th. That's almost an embarrassing understatement, I guess I would say. And so I want to give you a little background. You know, the financial markets have been in a lot of turmoil over the last 2 months. Rates really spiked up in March and April. Rates on municipal bonds were more than 1% higher than they are now. And they've kind of gradually come down. At the time we did those estimates in mid-April, we weren't sure what direction the market was going. So we used conservative assumptions. We wanted to make sure that even if rates were a little higher than they were at that time, that this would still make sense. So what has happened is that rates have come down just in the last 2 weeks about 0.4%, and they've been trending downward for that whole period. And from what I'm reading in the financial news today, demand is even stronger today than it was last week. So you're a beneficiary of that, and we'll talk about what impact that has on you. So if we could go ahead, I'll talk about the 3 components of the bond issue and what impact that had. If you can go ahead a couple more pages, Kevin, to the what's called the sources and uses schedule. Keep going here. So this shows the sources and uses of funds for the 3 portions of the bond issue. And there's the refunding portion, the facilities maintenance health and safety portion, and the facilities maintenance deferred maintenance portion. So the bond amounts for those are $850,000, $1,820,000, and $260,000. The other thing I would mention, you can see this line here for reoffering premium. That is that's kind of an extra price that the underwriter of the bonds pays, and there's technical reasons for it. But because you got a premium that was much larger than the allowance for discount bidding there, that's more proceeds that you can spend on the project. So because of that, we were able to reduce the size of the bond issue from $3,075,000, which is what was in the pre-sale report and in your official statement. We were able to reduce it down to $2,930,000, still fund all the projects that you're planning to fund through the bond issue. So if you go to the next page, this is the overall debt service schedule for the entire, all 3 purposes combined. And you can see total P&I there, it says, is $3,343,000 over the life of the issue of about 10 years, almost 10 years. In the pre-sale report, that was estimated at $3,602,000. So that's about $259,000 less overall than we had estimated. And then I'll just quickly go through the 3 components of it because they all have different impacts. The next page shows the results of the refunding, and the savings page is the reduction in payments on your bonds that results from this refunding. It's $40,000, and in the pre-sale report, we had estimated that that would be about $12,000. I think we knew at the time that was a conservative estimate, but that will then reduce the tax levies on your 2010 bonds by the amounts shown there each of the next 6 years. So that's a better result than we had really expected. The next page then shows the deferred maintenance portion of the bond issues. And this is the portion where payments are financed out of your existing long-term facilities maintenance revenue. So you can see you're projected to receive about $386,000 a year in revenue. This will use up anywhere from $36,000 to $49,000 of that revenue. And so it's about 10% of your LTFM revenue, which is good. We don't like to see that percentage get too high because then you don't have enough money to pay for other ongoing projects that you'll have, particularly with schools the age of your facilities. And that is about 20,000 less than we had estimated in the pre-sale. The next section is the health and safety portion. This does cause an increase in taxes. The deferred maintenance portion doesn't because you're using your existing revenue. This does cause a slight increase in taxes. And you can see the debt levies for this are estimated at $2,129,000. That's about $208,000 less than we had estimated in the pre-sale report. And it's really structured around your existing bonds, your building bonds, and your other all facility, the 2010 bonds. So we're making relatively small payments for the first 7 years while you're still making payments on those other bonds, and then higher principal payments the last 2 years when the other bonds are paid off. The next page shows a graph of those tax rates. So you can see the blue bars are the taxes for the new bond issue, and the red bars are the existing bonds. So you can see how we coordinated those. So when your existing bonds are paid off, the payments on the new bonds will increase, but the tax rate will stay the same. And then the next page shows the tax impact with these lower interest rates on a $100,000 home. This will cause an increase in taxes of $15 per year. We had estimated $17, and you can see what it would be for other types of property. And I should mention, this does not factor in the savings from the refund. So that real impact that taxpayers will see when you combine it with the impact of the refund will be just slightly less than this. But I think that's hopefully that's a tolerable tax impact. You know, it's not a good time to raise taxes, but these are important projects that you need to get done, and it's being done with, I think, fairly minimal impact to the taxpayers. The last thing I just want to cover real quick is the rating report. Since this is the first time you've gotten an underlying rating, the first time one of the credit rating agencies has looked at you. And you go to the next page, you're going to talk about the credit overview, which is kind of, there's a lot of detail in here on lots of different topics, but they talk, first of all, on the credit overview about your strong financial performance over the past 3 years, which have led it to sustain very strong reserves. So that's something that's very, very important to S&P. They like to see, number one, you having a sizable fund balance, so you're available to, or you're able to withstand unforeseen things, and also to see an increasing fund balance. So that really helped you with the rating. They talk about your local economy, that it's a limited economy. Later on, they talk about the concentration in the, I guess, the paper and the timber industries are being very important in the local economy. So that's something that's completely outside of your control. Nothing you can do about that. And then the last sentence, they talk about declining population and declining enrollment, which could add pressures on the district's longer term projections. But as we talked to the analysts at S&P, first of all, Kevin and Stacy did a great job. They were very on top of what's happened in your finances and offered great explanations for what you have done. And we made sure they understood that this trend of declining enrollment is not something new. It's been going on for many, many years. And yet, despite that, the district has really done a tremendous job of controlling your budget and maintaining adequate fund balances. So I think that was a real positive that they saw in the rating. So I just wanted to point out those few things, and if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Joel, the only question I had is, do we need to amend our motion, you know, because we actually list the 3,075,000. We change that at this point, or is that just a technicality?
That's really just a technicality. I think the resolution will be amended by your bond attorney and our staff, I guess, to fill in. There's a lot of blanks in that resolution, so a lot of that will get amended, and then you'll get a completed, corrected copy to include in your minutes.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the board have any questions, or do any of the board members have questions for Joel?
None? It's because we all understood it so well. That's what the deal is.
Well,
Okay.
thank you very much, Joel. I'll let Ted take over and we'll get it taken care of, and I'll be in touch with you tomorrow when I have the final signature.
I need to know what time the board approves the resolution. So I don't know if you want to take up the resolution right now or wait until you get it.
They're going to vote on it here in a matter of a minute here.
Okay. Well, I'll just stay until the vote is
Okay.
done. How's that?
Yep.
And then I'll sign off.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, going back to the original motion by Michelle, we had a second by Mike. Is there any further discussion that anybody has that they'd like to add? Questions, comments, anything before we do a roll call? Okay. Well, then we're going to do a roll call on the motion. Mike Holden,
Yes.
Michelle Hebner,
Yes.
Tony Corpy,
Yes.
Jennifer Windows.
Yes.
Ted Saxon, yes. Terry Murray,
Yes.
Roxanne Skogstad Deach.
Yes.
It carries unanimously at 5:23 p.m. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel.
Okay, now we're gonna get back on track to the tenure recognition, which I had printed out. And now I'll just be bringing it up on my computer, so 1 second. It's probably in my printer out there. Okay. Let's see, resolution awarding tenure. Okay, before I start on these, on all three of these, why does that? Sorry, 1 sec, guys. Maybe my pages are just out of order. Yeah, here it is. Okay, they were out of order. So the resolutions for all three, and I have them all individually listed here. What do you think about doing an motion for all of them or individually?
Yep, let's do all three together.
Okay, so we have three tenure recognitions. Resolution awarding contract to Casey Quila, Michelle McDonald, and Ariana Cipriano. I will entertain a motion and then I will read the resolution.
So moved. Second.
Was that Rox and Jen then?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Member Roxanne Skogstad Deach introduced the following resolution and moved its adoption. Resolution for awarding contract leading to continuing contract rights or tenure. Whereas Casey Quila, Michelle McDonald, and Ariana Cipriano have served the required number of years of probationary teaching as prescribed by MS 122A.40, and whereas Casey Quila, Michelle McDonald, and Ariana Cipriano have successfully met instructional and professional standards of ISD 261, International Falls Public Schools, as determined by their immediate supervisor, Melissa Tate and Tim Everson. And whereas Melissa Tate, principal, Tim Everson, principal, and Kevin Grover, superintendent, now recommend Casey Quila, Michelle McDonald, and Ariana Cipriano to the school board to faculty tenure. Be it resolved that Casey Quila, Michelle McDonald, and Ariana Cipriano, upon the recommendation of the administration, be granted faculty tenure to the extent of 1.0 FTE with all the privileges and responsibilities effective 2021 to 2021, or sorry, 2020 to 2021 school year. The motion for adopting of the foregoing resolution was duly seconded by member Jen Windows, and now we have to do a roll call vote. Okay, we'll start with Mike Holden,
Yes.
Michelle Hebner,
Yes.
Tony Corpy,
Yes.
Jennifer Windows.
Yes.
Ted Saxon, yes. Terry Murray,
Yes.
and Roxanne Skokstad Deach.
Yes.
It carries unanimously, whereupon the said resolution was declared duly passed and adopted. And so congratulations to those 3 teachers who were awarded that tonight. We are going to move on to the consent agenda as printed. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll
Second.
second.
Got Tony beat you to it. Got a motion by Michelle and a second by Tony. Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda, or clarification rather, on any consent agenda items?
If I could just make a few comments. First of all, if you, give me 1 second and I'll have this up. I was going to share my screen and I lost it here. So I think I can get it. So I was just going to, can you see that now?
Yep.
Okay, so I want to start by hitting on down here. Excuse me. On number 23 here, just so you're aware, this is an ongoing, the IEA is the one that does our safety plan, manages our chemicals and so on. It's a 3-year agreement. The prices are in there. We're recommending continue going with them. The one right above it is a piece of the asbestos, I'm going to say the asbestos project, the analysis, monitoring, and removal of asbestos anytime we do a major project. And it was a piece that kind of got left out of the elementary project. And so there was about a $7,500 planning or to figure out the scope that was in last month's. And now there's a monitoring as well as a removal. And both of those are, well, 35 to 40,000. So that's what that is. I just wanted to hit on that a second. The number 24 is the actual commissioning. So what happens is when the project is done over there at Falls Elementary, the same group that designed it, which is called the design group, will come in and actually go through all the work that's done, not just when it's completed, but as it's going on, to make sure that what was designed actually got put in and done correctly, and it operates within the specs that it's supposed to. Because to be honest with you, I'm just speaking for myself, it could slip a fast one, so to speak. And I'm not saying any of the contractors would, but they come in and put their stamp of approval saying that it met what they designed and was done according to bid. Number 26, I'm just pointing out because we're going to talk more about this. There was, I think it's 40,000 in this year's budget for furniture at the elementary and 30,000 in next year's. And so it adds up technically to 70,000. Missy and her staff have put it together. Of course, it moves it, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the budget, all into this year, but that is in your last year, or technically currently this year and next year's budgets. So it's on track, but I just want to highlight that. Number 27, more or less just, I think you would agree with the preschool piece, and I'm not charging fees. The preschool students have not been in the building for Q4, so we have provided work to them, but I guess I would say my recommendation would be hard to charge them when families could be still paying daycare and things like that. So we just want formal action to go that route as well. Number 31, I'm just highlighting, the teachers group approved doing the QComp program again for next year. I would recommend we continue moving forward. And then number 32 is the final one, just so that if anyone has any questions, going back to when the board, and this goes back quite a ways, and I'm just gonna hold up, there was it's not scanned in, but a sale agreement for Bacchus. And in that original agreement, there was a variety of items that were retained by the district. And I'm just gonna pull it here, give me 1 second here. There's a piano, there's shelves, risers, 2 sets of risers, a sound system, music stands, folding chairs, some ellipsoid lights, and spotlight. And so the group from Bacchus came and talked to me about would we be willing to, give them to them, certain items, because they're maintaining them, to be honest. When our group goes and rents or uses the auditorium, if you will, yeah, they might use the spotlight or different things, but like the shelves for one of the risers, now Bacchus has taken on painting them and maintaining them. So I did a little checking. There is a little bit of a liability, first of all, with the lights. For instance, say there was a fire over there. That's our equipment. So the recommendation was, things that you're not, how would I say it? For surely not going to use, and I don't see us using the spotlights, using those the back shell to the risers. We have never taken and brought over here. We do use the risers and bring them back and forth, so we're not getting rid of those. The folding chairs we use from time to time, so we're not getting rid of those. Again, they're there for us to use. It takes our liability off of it. The piano we're not getting rid of. It's going to stay housed over there, but there's, I'm going to say, a significant value to that, and so I don't think we want to mess with that. But the pieces that could really be a liability, like the lights, the sound system, I guess the recommendation was to either get them out of there or, in essence, give them to them. We technically can't gift, and so that's why you see it as a sale, if you will, for $1. So I think it's the right thing to do. Let them maintain and let the community continue to use what's been there ever since the board sold Bacchus. So just want.
And when we use that stuff, it's probably always there anyways, right? It's not
Correct, and
something-
they're going to continue to use it and maintain it, and like I say, it takes our liability piece off, at least from our insurance provider right now, as far as, like I said, there was an issue with any of our, what we would say is our stuff. So, and there's really, I'll be honest, there's really very little value to it. Those spotlights, I mean, they use it, but I don't know what you'd get for it if you put it for sale, the spotlight, for instance.
Yeah.
Any
Is there any-
questions?
yeah.
Highlighted
Any
those
clarifying
items.
questions? No clarifying questions?
Hey, one other thing, Ted, before we, okay, yeah, never mind. Go on.
No, you should, if you want, Kevin, you can. I don't mind.
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. So let me go back to, I had a motion by Michelle and a second by Tony to approve the consent agenda as presented. We're going to do a roll call vote now. Mike Holden,
Yes.
Michelle Hebner,
Yes.
Tony Corpia,
Yes.
Jennifer Windows.
Yes.
Ted Thaxton, yes. Terry Murray,
Yes.
Roxanne Skogstad Beach.
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda passes unanimously. All right, let's see here. All right, moving on to budget item. Receive final fiscal year 2019-2020 revenue and expense budgets and tentative fiscal year 2020-2021. I'll entertain a motion.
We don't need a motion. We're just receiving them.
Oh, we're just receiving them, okay.
But what I would like to do, if you give me a second here, I would like to get that up and have some conversation here. Kind of explain a little bit of it here. So
Okay.
just let me get out of this one. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so what we would like to do, and I will definitely, Stace is on, allow or recommend if she wants to step in or interrupt me wherever we're at. Majority of this, well, all of this, Stacy has put together and put a fair amount of time and effort into. And then in June, obviously, we have to adopt next year's budget and be ready to go. In other words, we can't pay anything in July unless we have adopted budget. So there's a summary sheet here of what I'm going to say are major items. Some are changes, some are not. But Stace has done a job of highlighting. Mine 1920 is the current budget that we're in. Okay, these are some things for the most part that have been taken care of. Some of it we were aware of, some things we were not aware of, so to speak. An example being, and I'm just kind of going back and forth, the retirement incentive. You know, there were 2 teachers that took that option. And so roughly, and I can't speak, roughly, well, it is $39,200 between the 2 of them. Not something we had budgeted. We don't know when that's coming. This item here, and this is going back 2.5 years ago when we originally started that train analysis. We've never been billed for it because what they kind of do is if we would have hired them to do a project or one of the projects going forward, they would have waived a chunk of the fee. Well, we haven't used train. We've kind of severed ties, went a different direction. So we had to pay that out. It was savings other years, but it got pulled into this year. This wage stipend piece, for the most part, that's the $900 a teacher in the teacher's contract. Majority is that. Again, we had a percentage budgeted, but that was something above and beyond. And then I think I hit pretty much on, those are just some of the things that have come up, so to speak. Looking ahead into 2021, and just, I preface this because I didn't want any of you kind of coming unglued. For instance, we put in the $500,000 that we're going to take out of reserve into next year's expense budget. So that increased, instead of just taking it out of reserve, we put it in as an expense. The same thing happening with the PC set aside. If you recall, we're putting away $75,000 each year so that 5-6 years down the road when we buy computers or devices again, hopefully we have the money sitting there. Correct me if I'm wrong, 2 years ago, we just took it out of reserve. I'm recommending to Stacy and the board that we put it in the expense, because otherwise, if we go below or we get close to where we're at our 2.5 months operating, find that money. So I want it built into the budget. We're technically spending that each year. It gets put into a reserve account. So that's a new way of going. This piece here, which we're going to act on later, assuming if we approve it, we didn't have a social worker in the budget. We talked about that earlier. And again, you'll see it, there's different numbers. The recommended hiring of that person is 48, 49,000, somewhere right in there. Now keep in mind that is not benefits included. So if the person were to take family insurance and the other benefits that come along, it's definitely more than that 48, 49,000. We can add roughly 20,000 on for family insurance. And so that's where that number comes from, 18, 19,000, something like that. So those are the kind of major additions. We had the bus in there, but it's a bigger purchase. The other thing that we caveat down here, and this is the piece that you got to keep in mind, we're estimating about 200,000 in, call it COVID-19 money, federal money. It's going to come through a title fund, which will offset some of our tech money and cleaning supplies and a variety of different things going forward. So that's a good thing, as well as we're going to get, and this is the biggie, roughly 450,000 in transmission line money that the county has notified us of. Roughly in July, we should get that. So they didn't give us an exact date. That is not in the revenue yet. So as we go on here, and feel free to interrupt me if you have, there's a nice summary. But when we start,
Kevin,
Yep.
Kevin, this is Rox. say, would you back up under the wage stipend? That's not QComp, right?
Well, if you recall from negotiations, what happened is over several years, there's either pieces that QComp hasn't been paid out. And so part of negotiations where we settled with the teachers group, once a QComp money is not paid out, it goes into general fund money. But to settle the teacher contract, that was one thing thrown out, is a stipend, one-time stipend of $900. In essence, it was to kind of say, yeah, you have worked hard over the last however many years, and unfortunately, some things have not worked out. But the reality is it came out of general fund, because once the QComp money isn't paid out, it doesn't stay in a separate QComp fund. Does that make sense?
Yep, I remember it now. Thank you.
But that is in essence what it was, correct?
Mhm.
So going on now we're going to look at the normal sheets, or fairly normal. These are your budgets, if you will, keeping in mind 19 was last year. So these are audited numbers. And then we get into, sorry, I'm going to go up here. Fiscal 20, which this was earlier in the year for projections. This is as of now, this column. And so you'll see a net change. And the same thing going on for 21. This is what we preliminarily had. This is where we're at today. Okay, so the top being, and I'm just going to go across here, revenue. So for instance, we had, for this year, estimated 13.1 million. We're very close to that. Okay, minor change. And again, that's with some additions and stuff and with some savings. There's things because of the situation we're in that have either worked out better or worked out worse, so to speak. Looking ahead, we were estimating 12.9 million for revenue. We're still in that pretty much same ballpark. Revenue hasn't changed much. When we start looking at expense now, again, same format last year. Here's what we were estimating for expense. Here's where we're at for expense, a difference of roughly 219,000. Now, keep in mind what we just looked at. That was the purpose of the summary, showing you some of the difference. And like I say, there's things being pulled into this year, like the asbestos, for instance. That's in this year. It wasn't something we were thinking about. We've moved some lighting money in for like a pool project. There's things that have come up. It's kind of a give and take type deal. Okay. And like I said, that QComp payment was above and beyond, and so on. Looking forward into next year, and this is where the big jump came. Like I said, that's why we want to put that summary out ahead of you. 500,000 of the difference is the FES project. Okay, and I'm just going to scroll back up here, if you will, so that you can kind of see that the budget hasn't changed majorly, but here are 500,000 there. Roughly, say 73. We put that 75,000 in there for an actual expense coming out, and it eats up the majority of the difference, if that makes sense from what we had originally presented to you. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but keep in mind, and we're going to go on and look at, there's just some more summary here. Again, another piece here. Okay, so here's the 500,000. The PC set aside is in as an expense, the new social work position. There's 75,000 which we missed, or we're saying we're missing in wages and benefits. And there's a couple people that went to family insurance that bumped that up, as well as just a variety. Some people got step and lane changes. And so we're raising our approximate salaries for the year, and it makes up the difference. Now, keep in mind, that said, we're in that 400,000 to 500,000 typical deficit spending we've talked about. We feel, and we're going to get to the reserve, if I will, one of the slides, fund balance here. This fund balance does not have that roughly 650,000 built into the revenue. So this is not going to be the exact number. It's just we don't have it, so we didn't build it in. So we're definitely still above our 2.5-month operating recommendation or policy, but we're in that same place we've talked about for the last year or two. At some point, we need to look at, and we're going to narrow in, if you will, on closer and closer over the next year or so into being at that 2.5-month position. So we are going to have to look at, if the next word is tightening the strings, and Stacy has trimmed some things in the budget, and we hope we're in the ballpark of what we can run at. Yes, there'll be things that come up over time, but I think we're going to have to tighten in a little bit and look at some adjustments. But for the most part, that is where we're at. We don't approve anything tonight. I'm open for any, and it goes on. You can look at this, the estimate of same stuff we've looked at, student numbers, ADM, and here is one that actually Stace used with that, what do you call it? When we got our rating, as Joel just talked about, is actually our percentage, not that it's changed much, our percentage of students enrolling out, resident students going elsewhere is actually slightly going down. Nothing to jump up and down about yet, because we're obviously the whole area is losing kids, but our percentage wise is slightly going down. Actually, here is where we're at this year. Anyway, look it over. Are there questions right now? Anything I can answer or?
Yeah, Kevin, this rocks again. Go up just a little bit above the adjusted, there, that one.
Yep.
And you said under the far right column, you said the 600 and, what was it, 650,000 was not included in there.
Correct.
Can you tell me why that wasn't included? Because to me, that would pull that up and make us, is that only because it's just a one-time thing and we shouldn't really look at it that way? Why was that 650 not on that graph?
We don't have the exact amount, and like I say, we're going on a projection of the Title I, at least what they're projecting our district get from the COVID-19 federal relief, and not knowing exactly what it was. Yes, we could have thrown it in just like the transmission line. The estimate Jenny Herman gave us, I should say, is roughly around 450,000. Without knowing the exact number, we just thought we would talk to it, and until we see the exact number, not put it in. But it is money definitely that's coming our direction. We just don't have the exact amount. Could it be 180,000 in the COVID money? Could be 220,000. And the same with that transmission line money. I believe, and I don't know this, don't quote me, I believe that is one-time money. It's a question I put out and I haven't got an answer to yet. I know most, I believe, and Micah, you could correct me if I'm wrong, personal property owners think it's a one-time payment. I assume it's the same thing to the county, and that's what we're getting as our portion. Or maybe Terry knows. I don't know. If it's ongoing, that's going to be a bigger plus, if you will. And we have gotten transmission line money over the years, so I honestly can't say I will have an answer to that if it's one time or ongoing in the near future.
I know the property owners, Kevin, it was a one-time payment. However, the school districts could be different than that.
Yeah, I think though too, if I can speak to it for a minute, with the federal funding, the 200,000, the state is just in the process now of getting their application in. So until the state gets their application and approval in, it's going to take another few months before the applications get out to the districts. And so it's going to be a little bit before we find out how much money we're going to get, and we're thinking it's 200,000 or so, but there'll be what I call strings attached to it. And so we're just being really cautious with that. The other part of it is the non-public schools will have entitlement to it as well. So it just really am trying to be a little bit cautious. And I also understand it'll roll over more than one fiscal year. So we may not see all of it right away. As far as the tax line, the power line settlement, I'm just leery because it depends on when we start receiving it will dictate what fiscal year I have to receive it in. And again, being it's new, I would like to see the receipts a little bit first, just to make sure that they collect all of it. Because again, it's based on whether they collect it or not. We won't get it if they don't collect it. That's it. That's all I've got.
Other questions?
No other questions?
By all means, as the month goes on, because obviously this will be up for approval in June. Sorry, my mind went blank. Shoot questions, ask questions, look it over. Definitely willing to sit down and talk about anything people have for questions or whatever, clarify.
The other ones you'll receive in June will be Fund 2 and Fund 4. I didn't have those ready in time for publishing because we spent so much time going over Fund 1 to make sure it was as clean. So we'll give you those as well. And we will try to kind of use more of a ongoing document for documenting. I also have one plan for staffing levels and some of those types of documents that we'll use going forward to kind of look back onto, is to give you a snapshot like this, data to help you.
Okay. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to add? Okay, I guess we'll consider that received then. Moving on, if we can then to action item resolution accepting gifts and donations. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll
So
make that
moved.
motion.
What was that?
Mike?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. This is Rox.
Rox, were you trying to beat Terry? Was that your point there or what?
I think I was. He's kind of snotty that way, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Resolution for acceptance of gifts and donations. Whereas School Board Policy 706 establishes the guidelines for acceptance of gifts or donations to the district. Whereas International Falls School District Board encourages the support of the district's educational program through gifts or donations that meet the goals and objectives of the school district. Whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 states the school board may accept a gift, grant, or device of real or personal property only with the adoption of a resolution approved by 2/3 of its members. Therefore, be it resolved, the school board of ISD 361 accepts with appreciation the following gifts, donations, or grants received by the school district. FHS weight room, Volt software from PCA Mill of International Falls, $2,500. FHS athletic program from PCA Safety Committee, $2,000. Falls Elementary School from Wells Fargo Your Cause, $60. FHS student planners from anonymous donor, $300. Varsity boys hockey volunteer coach from Boys Hockey Boosters, $949.57. ISD 361 Community Ed from International Falls Elk Bowlers, $500. 5 yards of black dirt for the football field from Levi Pearson, $175. Prom invites and posters from North Star Publishing, $172. Box tops for education to Falls High School, $15. To Falls Elementary School, $116.40. Coca-Cola of International Falls donated a congrats class of 2020 banner and soft drinks for yearbook pickup. I did have a motion by Mike and a second by Roxanne. And is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call it to a roll call vote. Mike Holden,
Yes.
Michelle Hebner,
Yes.
Tony Corpy,
Yes.
Jennifer Windows,
Yes.
Ted Saxton, yes. Terry Murray,
Yes.
Roxanne Skokstad Deach.
Yes.
Okay, one sec. Apologies here. Clicked on something, but I got too many tabs open. All right, it carries unanimously and the resolution was declared adopted. Moving on to action item number 2, approve the hire of Jordan Bright as social worker / counselor for the 2020-2021 school year, pending the securing of proper licensing for a new social worker counselor position at Falls Elementary School. I'll entertain a motion. And a second?
Second.
Was that
Had to beat
Terry?
Rocks. I had to beat Rocks. She always jumping in there.
I was waiting to let you beat me.
That's very kind of you, Rox. Okay. I got a motion by Jen and a second by Terry. Any further discussion? I think we'll have some, I'm sure.
Only thing I would say is the Missy and an interview committee interviewed, and Missy can jump in here. I don't have any applicants, but this is their recommendation. And so we would support that.
Okay, okay. Missy, you have anything to add or are we good? All right. So I got a motion by Jen and a second by Terry. Hearing no further discussions, we'll do another roll call. Mike Holden,
Yes.
Michelle Hebner,
Yes.
Tony Corpy.
I abstain.
Okay, Jennifer Windows,
Yes.
Ted Saxton, yes. Terry Murray,
Yes.
Roxanne Skogstad Deach.
Happy to say yes.
All right, it passes with 6 people voting for it and 1 abstention. Is that because she's related to you, Tony?
Yes, she's my niece.
Okay. I don't know if you have to abstain for that. If they don't bring household income to you?
It would be,
No.
it doesn't hurt. It still counts as an in favor of vote in this case, so.
Okay. Well, anyways, it's.
Can I change my vote? I didn't realize the relationship.
That's a mark against. Okay. Well, then the motion carries unanimously. So we're going to move on to administrative reports. Melissa Tate, elementary principal.
We are staying current at 509 students, same as last month. And then we have on Wednesday, this Wednesday at 10 o'clock, we'll be doing a preschool graduation, which is just, we'll be doing like a drive-through graduation, and then they'll be led on a short procession through town by the fire department. And then at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, we'll be doing our kindergarten graduation in the same style. I think Mr. Bleasy is going to be broadcasting that on Facebook Live, or when I find the parade route, if you guys are procession route, if you want to stand out and cheer them on, you're more than welcome to do so. Our last packet pickup day is the May 26th. So we will work those 3 days, May 26th, 27th, and 28th, to collect our materials and give students their last packets. And then also, just like to thank PCA, they donated dilly bar certificates for all of the elementary students. So we'll give those out in the last packets as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Tim Everson, secondary principal. Was Tim here? Yeah, he was here earlier.
Tim, are you with us? You muted?
Maybe he's off now.
I'm here. I just have to alt-tab through to get to my, there we go. Okay, we are at 553 our enrollment. We're down 2 from last month. We are having a special drive-up or drive-in for seniors to pick up their caps and gowns and yearbooks, and to drop off any school materials. That's going to happen Thursday the 21st from 11 to 1. And then we're going to be putting a special face mask that was made for each of those kids into their caps and gowns with gloves. And there are going to be fry bread tacos provided by Indian Education and some other treats that day. And we're encouraging faculty to attend, and all staff and board members are invited and encouraged to attend if you can make it that day. So Thursday from 11 to 1. We are having a mandatory pickup and drop off of the remaining student materials on Friday, May 22nd for students in grades 9 through 11, and Tuesday, May 26th for students in grades 6 through 8, and the times will run from 8 to 4. We will be awarding letter grades for second semester at Falls High School for all our students we will be giving incompletes in lieu of failing grades for second semester. And these incompletes then will be due Friday, October 2nd. And that way it will allow students 4 weeks after school is back in session to actually have some face-to-face time with the teacher if that's what they need to be able to get those grades up. And then I had talked with Ted and Kevin a little bit before the meeting. There's going to be a Rotary Awards program this year. It's going to be digitally, and we're in the process of trying to get pictures for that and some videos recorded, and then that'll get put together. And the plan is to get that live for students here sometime next week. Well, yeah, sometime next week, the week before graduation. And then I just want to say thank you to Coca-Cola, to Jay Bartkowski and Kim Rudd. They put together that banner that's down by Smoky Bear Park. And then I talked to Ted Brokaw and thanked Ted and the city crew for getting that hung up for us. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. Kevin Grover, Superintendent.
Okay, so just a few things. First of all, as far as graduation goes, just so you're aware, we are still planning on doing a drive-in type graduation. Some of the details are still not finalized. And I was on, Jen was in earlier on a recorded listening to a MSBA broadcast. The Department of Education is putting guidance out, and we have to finalize exactly what we're comfortable and willing to do for graduation. A drive-in is allowable. The question is how much we're willing to allow the students to interact, if you will. Are we willing to let them walk across the stage? Should we have them, drive up in their vehicle, for instance, when they're front and center, get out, then walk the stage, and then go back? Or are we willing to allow them to sit on a chair out front? Not 100% sure yet. I'm leaning more towards allow them to drive up one by one, but we have to talk some more about that, meaning Tim and I, and come to a decision. And I will definitely get it out to you ahead of time. But the recommendation from the School Board Association that I was listening to earlier was administration should come up with a plan, share it with the board. It doesn't need board action. On a yearly basis, you don't approve, our grad plan. Keep the board informed, and make sure none of you think we're acting outside of what is feasibly safe. On the flip side, obviously, the state's recommendation is do a virtual graduation. That's the safest that we can do. I guess we feel we can do something that is acceptable. Of course, things could change in the next week and a half too. If we all of a sudden have 30 cases locally, that could change, to be honest with you. But so that's where we're at with the graduation piece. We are obviously starting to look at next year already. I don't have a whole lot of answers, if you will, what school startup is going to look like. We will be working over the summer to, through guidance from Department of Ed and the health departments and so on, put some plans together. But right now it's just hard to get my mind wrapped around various options, from alternating days or things like that to what's the best way to social distance, in certain areas, like on school buses, possibly running more lunch periods, so that we can reduce the numbers. We're going to have to go through that. A few other things that we're going to explore is obviously, I don't want to say better, because better makes it sound like we don't clean, but there are different ways of cleaning rooms in different areas. And I tried getting a hold of Mr. Manassa today, because he said he had some information at the fire hall and said we would connect. It's their board meeting for the city tonight too, so I know those days are busy. But he had some ideas, but I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of recommendations coming out, and we're going to have to figure out, there's fogging devices, there's UV light devices, there's just a variety of things that obviously all cost money, but we're going to have to kind of maybe take another step up, if you will, to be ready. And of course, it takes manpower. The more, and then when I say man, it takes employees, more cleaning, more disinfecting and so on, but it may be something that we have to do a little better job at. So anyway, we'll keep you in the loop, but the superintendent's group is starting the first week of June to have weekly meetings to discuss what we're planning and I should say our region is, so that we're not all trying to create 2, 3, 4 plans on our own, so to speak, share ideas and think about it. So I'll keep you in the loop there. The other 2 things that I have on here, this management plan, and I forget and I apologize. One of the board members asked to see the management plan, so I attached it. The only caveat I would say there is keep in mind everything is not in there. It gives a lot of the information that is provided to staff and that staff go through, but what you won't see in there is, for instance, evacuation. It does not list the several places or sites that we have and have been refining over this last year, because this is in essence a public document. Anyone could come in and ask for it. So it would not make much sense, and I'm just going to use an example of something that is not an escape place, but if our evacuation, one of our evacuation sites was the hospital, if not, we don't want that listed in the book, and so anyways, you go through, if you want to look through it, some of it is repetitive, but there's that document. That is one of the things IEA helps us plan. There's a safety committee that looks at different pieces throughout the year, but I attach that. Questions, let me know. The other thing, and I'm just gonna highlight here, is this goes back probably 2 to 3 years ago. In fact, when Gerald Bolstead was still coaching girls hockey, we had been approached to look at, alternative locker rooms over at the arena. Not just for hockey, but for various sports. And they originally had come up with a plan. For whatever reason, it had never really moved forward. They did get some rough numbers from Dave Harder, I want to say about a year into the process. I attached the sketch here, and it's just for kind of documentation purposes. But Chad Baldwin and Glenn Marcotte had a conversation probably 3 weeks ago. It was just after our last board meeting, a few days. And they would like to, with your permission, start investigating to see if there is, I'm going to say, an appetite, because I've explained to them the district doesn't have, I'm going to say, $500,000. And roughly that's the ballpark of this, maybe even a little higher, to put into locker rooms, not only for the arena or for the hockey players. It would also probably be used by baseball, softball, football, various groups, but they would be their own locker rooms that they don't share with visiting teams and so on. They want to try seeing if there's an appetite, meaning donors out there. And so again, everything would come back to you. It's not something, it could be a 5-year plan. They don't know, but they didn't want to start asking around unless the board was okay with them kind of to put feelers out. I don't know if they have people in mind that have said something or not. And again, the design is not what it would probably end up being. It was just a mock. The weight facility they talked about, probably not a need now. They got something going over there. So it's just a conceptual idea, but they don't want to ask, if you will, without the board being at least somewhat aware that, if they feel there is appetite, then they will come back. They would have presented themselves, but they weren't too keen on doing a Zoom. I said, I can pass the information on at least at this point, but they are well aware that, we don't have a large offer, if you will, for this type of project right now, but they would like to explore what donors are out there. So I guess I'm just opening up for a little discussion, and obviously nothing's set in stone. And if they come up with $500,000 or some money, then the discussion needs to get a little more serious and in depth, and what would ongoing costs be and so on.
All I'd say is 500,000 is a tall mountain to climb, you know, so I wish him the best of luck. I know Michelle's had some experience with raising a bunch of money for playground equipment and stuff, so it's possible. Just a big mountain.
Yep, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, I mean, it would obviously, you know, we've talked about before, if you were to build a new arena, you would do it differently. A lot of places do have, or even new schools, you know, have more locker rooms and stuff than we as a 50+ year facilities have. It's worth looking at, but to me, it's a nice, not a have to have. We've obviously went for many years with the way the facilities are, not saying upgrades aren't done, as we have done upgrades over there, substantial, I guess, in a certain aspect of air movement and kind of cleaning up, repainted the locker rooms, new lighting and stuff. So they have gotten a makeover, but I'm willing to let them run with it and see what they can come up with. No timeline, we'll report back as we get more information, but we just didn't want to, like I say, let them start kind of asking certain people and, you know, talking about it without you being aware. Does that make sense?
Kevin, can I ask a quick question on this? Looking at the picture, do you know, is that just taking over the locker rooms that are there now, or is there a different space they're looking to build them?
No, what they originally had talked about was in the drawing, if you look at the drawing, and I think Gerald did the original drawing, but they thought about building a structure in essence off the parking lot over there, you know, on the lower level. And Dave Harder came in and did some analysis and looked at it with, like I say, I think it was Gerald, I think Chad was involved at the time as well. Glenn was as well. He felt it would actually be cheaper to go on the other side, which would be, I'm going to say, closest to the high school here, built into the ground. The reason.
Under the football?
What, say again?
Under the football.
Yeah.
Like under the football field practice area? Okay.
On that side, because of where the sewer and water was, which is a significant cost when you start looking at, you know, if you have to get sewer and water somewhere.
Right.
So again, nothing's set in stone. It's not taking over the locker room. The idea would be is if you added 2 locker rooms, in essence, you would still keep those 4 that you have
Right.
for visitor / tournament. It's just these, the boys and girls would each have their own, I'm going to say for each season. Whether, yeah.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, Kevin, is there anything else? I know we had talked about a couple things when I was in there earlier. One was that school board academy that we were looking at, because we were going to do it. We were going to do it at the library, and then we're going to do. Then I was thinking, well, we just have to do a Zoom thing. But now Kevin was saying that it's a possibility, since there's not going to be a huge turnout, let's be honest. People aren't chomping at the bit to be school board members. I wish they were. But there's a possibility we could just still have it in the library. So I hadn't talked to Dan about that since Dan McGonigal, since the last meeting we had. So, but I'd like to see that get going sooner than later. And everybody who is leaving the board should send one person, I think.
The conversation Ted and I had is, you know, realistically, we have 4 people coming up in November, I believe. And again, I'm not going to speak for anyone. Inkling is one person is going to run again, which is great. I would love to have all 4 obviously run again. But that being said, I think it's very appropriate to, and again, would invite whoever would be interested to come and give their 2 cents on what it means to serve. We can make it a formal meeting if we need to. But like I said, my gut is if we could get a handful of people, we would probably be fortunate. We could spread out in here, especially once June comes around and things are a little more open, you know, and just have a conversation, you know, let them ask questions of either board members.
MSBA has kind of a quick packet too, so we don't really have to come up with the presentation.
Correct.
We'll have our own experiences.
So I would say,
so we'll find the date for something like that.
Yep.
Just so you guys are all aware. I can't remember, that was pretty much all we talked about. I
Yep,
suppose.
that's all I got.
Okay, moving on to committee reports, Community Ed Advisory Board. I guess we're probably gonna have some stuff happening there finally now. Dan or any of the board members, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, we haven't had any board meeting yet. We've kind of put those on pause, just given how things have kind of been rolling out. Ted, I'm happy to update that flyer that I sent to you way back when you and I talked about that before. So if you have some dates and whatnot, I still have that information, so I can certainly start to promote that and get that piece rolling for you on the school board retreat or the
Okay, I'll work with Kevin to get a date for you tomorrow, maybe. Okay, is that what you got for us, Dan?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up on my end.
Oh, sorry.
No, I have a little bit more. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I'm the weird one.
Prior to the shutdown, Tim and I had a few meetings about the possibility of bringing back the Special Olympics or trying to get that up on and off the ground. And today I got a phone call, an individual who lost her sister who was in the Special Olympics back in 2005 would like to set up a memorial fund in her name. The participant's name was Randy Mark, and her sister, Cheryl Corporal of Mankato, called me today about possibly setting that up. So hopefully Tim and I and Kevin, we were going to rope you in, and then all hell broke loose. But hopefully we can get back to some of those discussions and get something off the ground, both to help honor Randy and it'd be great, I think, for some of our community members to be able to participate in that. So I've been working on that. I am in the process of organizing several outdoor socially distanced activities for our youth for this summer, hoping to help fill in the gaps with summer rec programming. Driver's training, there's an announcement expected early tomorrow afternoon. We're working to secure a space that meets DHS guidelines. We expect it to be held with the 20 registrants we currently have signed up. We haven't collected any money yet or anything like that, but I think we're pretty close on that. Same thing with swimming lessons, working to pull together some things on that front, but we expect to also be able to offer that with some social distancing pieces in place. All 12 plots are full at the community garden. I have a call into the city regarding the watering system for those plots, so I'm hoping to pull some strings there. I guess there's some animosity from the city towards that, I guess. I don't know details beyond that. I don't get into those weeds, but and then I joined.
Maybe we can talk about that later and we can figure something out.
Yeah, let's talk. Then I joined a group led by the Chamber of Commerce to help establish and coordinate recovery efforts in our community, and especially for our businesses as we attempt to merge following this COVID situation. So that's all I got.
Thank you very much, Dan. Appreciate it. Rec Commission.
Ted? Ted?
Yep.
If I can just add one more thing, and it's just kind of in hitting on what Dan, just so the board's aware, Dan and I have been talking, and obviously like with swimming lessons, I'm going to say the morning swim group, we're going to try getting as we can, just like opening a business, get some of that rolling again. And it kind of depends on how many people. We may have to go smaller groups. We had talked a little bit with swimming lessons, for instance, at least with the initial group, meaning the youngest of kids or the beginners, often an adult comes with them, a parent to start with. Very well could social distance. Maybe we can only have, 4 or 5 kids / parents, at a time to try and keep that number, around 9 to 1 is what they're recommending for schools right now. The same thing with what I'm going to call lap swim in the morning. I don't have a current number of how many were participating, but I would think if we had one person in a lane going forward, it would probably be acceptable down the road. And maybe the people have to rotate days. You can't come every day. So we're just exploring some options to try and get, some things back rolling as businesses open. So just kind of throwing that out there. Same with the older group of swimming lessons. Maybe we have to do smaller groups than we've done in the past. Maybe we have to have a parent come and be in the water with, because typically even at second and third level, the lifeguards help the kids a little bit. Well, we want zero kind of touch. Maybe a parent has to come and be willing to work with the kid while taking instruction from the lifeguard. So we're looking at options. Realistically, it might not be as financially generating, as much as we did in the past. Not that we generated a ton, but instead of having, 10 kids with one lifeguard or 8, maybe we're down to 4, but it's worth getting the ball rolling again. So.
All right. Recreation Commission. I know the city council, it's kind of funny, Carla Lyons on here muted. I think she's getting appointed to the rec commission tonight through the city council. Mike or Terry or Tony now? Tony, did you go to a meeting yet?
No, Tony hasn't been to a meeting yet, but she is on the rec commission.
Yeah, she's officially on it now.
I am happily to report that Tony is on the rec commission.
All right. What else you got, Mike?
Well, we had a Zoom meeting, and we approved 3 months worth of financial reports, and I'm happy to say that our finances are in terrific shape. Checkbook's looking really good, so that's going good. As far as the sports and stuff, Little League, nothing going on. It's pretty slow because of the virus and stuff, but overall, yeah, things are going good in the rec commission.
All right. Thank you very much. And Ella's not one of these numbers that are on, I'm assuming. So we won't have anything from student council tonight. Unless, did she give you anything ahead of time, Kevin or Tim?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
I don't have anything either.
Okay. Well, then that's the school board meeting for the night. Before we adjourn, I'd like to just say thanks to everybody who attended, not to the people who have to attend. You guys are here anyways.
And hey, Ted.
Yep.
Ted, if I can just add one more thing. Congratulations to the continuing contract people. And as I think mentioned to all of them, I didn't get a hold of Casey. We will do a reception whenever we're able to come back together. Maybe it's next fall, maybe it's next winter. I don't know when it is, but just letting them know that we have plaques ordered, as well as we'll get a cake and do our photo shoot and congratulate them appropriately. But anyway, congratulations to those, and thank you.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Do I got a second?
I'll second it.
I got a second by motion by Terry and a second by Mike to adjourn at 6:24 p.m. Roll call. Mike Holden.
Here.
Michelle Hebner.
Yes.
Tony Corpy. Mike, did you say here?
Yes.
I meant yes.
I know you did. I wanted to just clarify it. Jennifer Windows.
Yes.
Ted Saxon, yes. Terry Murray.
Yes.
Roxanne Skogstad-Deach.
Yes.
We are officially adjourned at 6:24. Thank you guys so much.